The most populated metro area in the EU has a surprising lack of tall buildings. This is by design. Paris limits the height of new buildings to 37 meters and has clustered 20 of its 24 skyscrapers in the La Défense business district, at the west end of its historical axis, 10 kilometers away from the Louvre at its eastern end. This straight vista exemplifies Paris's geometric street plan and unified aesthetic. It wasn't always this neat. To create what many regard as the world's most beautiful city required a massively ambitious, disruptive reconstruction lasting decades, overseen by an urban visionary. In the 1830s, a cholera pandemic devastated cities worldwide. Paris, with its narrow, poorly draining streets and filthy, cramped buildings, suffered 20,000 deaths, 3% of its population. People were desperate for change. French President Louis-Napoleon Bonaparte, nephew of Napoleon I, was uniquely positioned to act. He too was frustrated by these conditions and dreamed of making Paris a modern, hygienic, global city. But although he was extremely popular, he was constitutionally barred from running for re-election. So at the end of his term in 1851, he seized total control of the government and declared himself Napoleon III, Emperor of France. With absolute power, he fast-tracked his plans for Paris, appointing seasoned administrator Georges-Eugène Haussmann as the project's leader. In Haussmann, the emperor had found the only person in France with more drive, vigor, and ego than himself. Parisians had no idea that their city was about to become the century's largest construction site. Over his 17 years in charge, Haussmann and his team transformed Paris. They created 4,900 acres of parks, 24 new squares, and planted 600,000 trees. Never before had a city built so many parks so quickly. They constructed a 150-kilometer-long aqueduct to bring fresh spring water into the city, and expanded the sewer system so it could carry away solid waste for the first time by adding 380 kilometers of tunnels, which they also ran gas lines through to fuel new street lamps all over, turning Paris into the City of Light. As a boy, Haussmann had battled asthma in the dank mazes of the 800-year-old medieval city, and he had witnessed a number of armed uprisings where Paris's narrow streets were easily barricaded. So to open them up to light, improve airflow, and ease traffic, he meticulously mapped out 63 kilometers of new, wide, straight boulevards. But this required the demolition of 20,000 buildings and the relocation of 300,000 Parisians. With the emperor urging him on, Haussmann carried out his plans, creating tens of thousands of jobs for laborers doing the painstaking work with hand tools. To replace what they tore down, 34,000 new buildings were erected in a uniform style. Commercial space on the bottom, balconies on the middle floors, and at the top, dormer windows under roofs sloped at 45 degrees to maximize the amount of sunlight on the street. The facades were Roman-style limestone, while the roofs used zinc, giving Paris its distinctive blonde-gray look. Haussmann used monuments as landmarks for roads and intersections. A general rule of thumb: the larger the statue, the longer the road. Few monuments on Earth are larger than the Arc de Triomphe, a war memorial. Completed decades earlier in 1836, Haussmann made it a masterpiece by radiating 12 equally spaced avenues off of it, then capped them with shorter buildings and trees. This created visual depth and texture to support the mammoth structure. Haussmann's most controversial move was remaking the Ile de la Cité, evicting 10,000 residents there to create a municipal district with police headquarters, courts, and the city's main hospital. Napoleon and Haussmann aimed to complete the first phase of their citywide project in time to host the 1855 World's Fair and its 5 million visitors. They succeeded, and over the next 15 years, the duo continued improving the city for the benefit of all Parisians, and the tourists who arrived in ever greater numbers. In 1840, there were 87,000 passages across the English Channel. By 1899, there were 951,000. Today, Paris trails only Bangkok and London in welcoming more foreigners. And that's before it takes center stage for 3 spectacular weeks this summer. This week, Paris hosted the first Olympic ceremonies ever held outside of a stadium, along a 6-kilometer stretch of the Seine, watched by 500,000 in person and billions around the world. Parts of the Grand City will serve as backdrop for events, allowing organizers to use existing buildings and temporary, reusable structures, saving billions of euros. One of the few permanent spaces built for Paris 2024, the Olympic Village, will be converted into much-needed housing after the Games. The savings are helping to fund the Grand Paris Express, 4 new lines and 2 major extensions to the metro that will nearly double its length and increase capacity by 2 million passengers a day. Just the kind of work Napoleon and Haussmann would have approved. Thanks for watching. For more history on Paris, check out my video from a few years back, profiling the City of Light. And stay tuned for my piece on Bangkok, coming next week. Until next time, for TDC, I'm Bryce Plank.